Formula One is an incredibly competitive sport, and the current grid is so talented that no one from there even makes the list. But we will have a couple of 2022 honorable mentions. We won't tell you who they are right now though. In today's video, we'll talk about the worst drivers in F1's history. So make sure to stay until the end of the video to learn all about it. First up, we have Marco Apicella. Apicella was an established Italian driver. He raced for the Jordan F1 team in 1993. He was incredibly successful throughout his professional racing career, but unfortunately, he made the list because he also had the shortest F1 career ever. He was signed to the team for the 1993 Italian Grand Prix and only competed in the first 800 meters of the race. He had to be retired because of a collision with Sauber's JJ Leto at the first corner. And that's it. That was his entire F1 career. Consequently, we'll never truly know how good or bad Marco would have been in F1. His victory at the 1994 Japanese F3000 Championship does lead us to believe he would have been a great driver if allowed to compete properly. Now we have number 2, Taki Inoue. Taki Inoue was a Japanese driver. The bloke raced for MTV Simtek Ford and Footwork Hart during the 94 and 95 F1 seasons. While at MTV, he only raced once, but he didn't finish the race. However, his time at Footwork Hart in 1995 is best known for 2 very unusual accidents. The first accident happened at the Monaco GP. Inoue stalled his vehicle during a practice session. Consequently, he was hit by a course car while he waited for his own vehicle to be towed back to the pits. Yeah, the guy got hit by a car, but luckily he recovered pretty quickly. Then the second accident occurred at the Hungarian Grand Prix. He was forced to retire because of an engine failure, which then made his car catch fire. And while he was assisting the marshals with a fire extinguisher, he was hit again. And this time, it was a course car as well. How unlucky was that bloke? We feel extremely sorry for him. Fortunately, this didn't result in permanent damage. His mediocre driving throughout the season, along with 0 points, led to his retirement from the sport. Were these accidents the reason why he performed so terribly? We'll never know, but they did help him land on the list of worst F1 drivers in history. And let's get to number 3, Adrian Campos. Alright, so Campos was a Spanish driver who raced for Minardi during the 87 and 88 seasons. He entered 21 Grand Prix throughout his 2-year career. However, he qualified for just 16 races. He didn't finish 14 of those races. And as far as the 2 races he did finish, he came in the 14th and 16th place. It's like an F1 driver's worst nightmare. He retired after those seasons and never competed in the sport again. Moving on to number 4, Alex Yoong. Alex Yoong was a Malaysian driver. Just like Campos, he too raced for Minardi. Maybe Minardi, that's the problem? We'll get to that later in the video. Yoong raced during the 01 and 02 seasons. Yoong's performance in F3, F3000, and Formula Nippon was extremely mediocre, but despite that, he managed to bag a seat for Minardi during the end of their 2001 campaign. During his tenure with the team, the bloke failed to secure any points due to failures to qualify and retirements from several Grand Prix. On top of that, he was completely outclassed by his teammate Mark Webber. So because of all these reasons, his contract with the team wasn't renewed. And that's it. That was the end of his short F1 career. So in number 5, we have Luca Badoer. Luca Badoer was an Italian driver. Unlike any of the folks we've just mentioned, Badoer actually had a pretty long career. He had plenty of chances to show his skill and become the best of the best. But unfortunately, when it comes to him, we can't wonder what could have been. All we know for sure is that he just wasn't that good. He raced between 1993 and 2009 for various Formula One teams. So we also know that we can't blame the car or the team's strategy for his failures. He even served for Ferrari as their longest-serving test driver. On top of that, he won the F3000 championship. But despite all these achievements, he failed to score any career points. Absolutely none. And his career lasted over 16 years. He raced in 58 Grand Prix. That's 58 races he couldn't manage to get into the top 10 in. He nearly achieved a points finish. It was during the 1999 European GP. A strong drive led him all the way to 4th place. But luck wasn't on his side, and his gearbox failed with only 13 laps remaining. Now, our 6th driver on the list, Jean-Denis Delatraz. Jean-Denis Delatraz was a Swiss racing driver. He participated in a grand total of 3 F1 races. Before reaching F1, he scored 2 third places in the 1988 F3000 season. He didn't exactly enter F1 as a proper team driver. He entered as a pay driver, which essentially means he paid the teams to let him race. He raced for La Rousse and Pacific during the 1994 and 1995 championships, and his 3 races were disastrous, to say the least. He got lapped 10, yes, 10 times during the 1994 Austrian Grand Prix. He retired early at the Portuguese GP, and he finished in 15th place at the 1995 European GP. Being lapped 10 times in one race is even worse than not finishing. Luckily for him, his terrible time spent in F1 didn't lead to retirement from racing. He competed in sports car racing with 2 class wins at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Up next, Mr. 7, Chanok Nissany. Chanok Nissany was an Israeli-Hungarian driver. He raced for Minardi during the 2005 F1 season. We're going to pause our list for a second and discuss Minardi. An awful lot of drivers on this list happen to be from the team, don't they? Does that mean this team was terrible? Yes, it was. Is this why we don't see them in the 2022 season? Nope. They actually got bought out and became Scuderia Toro Rosso in 2006. Yup, with Red Bull's funding and Ferrari's engines, they scored their first and only pole in 2008. Then in 2020, the team was renamed to AlphaTauri to promote Red Bull's clothing brand. Yup, that's the team we see Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly racing in now. Apologies for getting sidetracked, folks. With that out of the way, let's get back to Nissany. Just like Delatraz, he funded himself to a seat on the team at the age of 41. His career was extremely short-lived though. His only session resulted in him spinning into a gravel trap, and that's it. That was his whole F1 career. Finally, last on this list, we have Al Pease. Al Pease was a Canadian-British driver. He raced for Castrol Oils Ltd. between 1967 and 1969. Despite being in the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame, he didn't do so well in F1. He was actually inducted into the Hall of Fame because of his success in other motorsports. Now, you won't even be able to guess why he's one of the worst F1 drivers ever. Firstly, his stint only lasted 1 race. Okay, not too bad, we've seen worse, but he became the only driver in the history of motorsport to be disqualified for, go ahead, pause this video and take a guess, for driving too slow. Can you believe it? So these are the worst drivers in F1 history. No one currently racing is nearly bad enough to make the list. So you know what? We'll just give an honorable mention to 2 drivers, one who's currently racing and one who just left F1. Lastly, the honorable mentions. In the first place, we have Nikita Mazepin. Mazepin is a Russian driver who raced for Haas during the 2021 season. He got that seat because his dad's company, Uralkali, sponsored the team. On top of all that, he kept losing to his own teammate, Mick Schumacher. He kept crashing out of races, kept scoring terribly. Every time he would lose out to his teammate, he would claim that Haas gave him the worst car on purpose. Why would they even do that. He also raced into the 2022 season. However, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, he had to be let go. But that turned out to be a blessing for Haas, since Magnussen is doing pretty darn well. Finishing up honorable mentions, Daniel Ricciardo. Before you start booing at us and disliking this video, just know that we absolutely love Ricciardo. He's not close to being the worst F1 driver. In fact, he's above average, but he gets an honorable mention because what was expected of him and what he delivered are two very different things. The bloke has started in 223 races throughout his career. Unfortunately, he's only won 8, and he's only ever gotten 3 pole positions his entire career. Still not bad, no doubt, but in 2017, folks speculated that eventually in a couple of years, he'll be winning the world championship. Nope, instead, he's on the verge of being let go from his F1 seat at McLaren for Oscar Piastri. With constant team hopping and some bad luck, he never could make his F1 career as great as it could have been. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Who do y'all think is the worst F1 driver that's not on this list? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you guys next time. Bye.